video is a gardening glossary, terms, word meanings and guide. A drupe is a fruit in which the hard seed or stone is protected by a thick layer of flesh. The flesh is then covered by an outer skin. Cherries, plums, peaches and others with stones are drupes. Compound drupes are fruits which are made up of cluster of tiny flesh-covered seeds. These are usually referred to as berries, raspberries, blackberries, etc., although they are not berries at all. Earthing up is common and important practice in the vegetable garden. It is a simple process which involves drawing up loose soil around growing plants. There are several reasons for earthing up plants. Usually it is done to blanch the stalks of plants like cardoons and celery. Potatoes and other root crops are almost always earthed up so that the tubers do not come too close to the surface and turn green. You should also do this with sweet corn. Sometimes gardeners earth up tall growing plants to improve the anchorage and to protect them from windy weather. It also protects from drought and heat. In the fruit garden, espalier refers to a system for training fruit trees, either along horizontal wires supported by posts or supported against a wall. Apple and pear trees are often grown like this. The trained trees are also known as espaliers. To form an espalier, the branches of the young tree must be made to grow out from the trunk and along the wires. Each year new growth must then be trained on a higher wire. Espaliers are usually grown to about 4 or 5 tiers, but it is possible to grow them over 20 wires or more. The term eye has several meanings to the gardener. It can refer to the centre of a flower when it is a different colour from the petals. The most common meaning is to describe the growth buds on a tuber, particularly on potatoes. An eye to the fruit grower is the growth bud, which is removed with a piece of the stem, usually from vines, for the purpose of propagation. In the garden, fan refers to a method for training fruit plants, usually plums, peaches, nectarines, apricots and cherries. Blackberries, loganberries and similar plants can also be fan trained. Apple and pear trees can be fan trained, but they are usually more suitable for cordons or espaliers. Fan trained trees are always trained against a wall, with branches radiating up in a fan-like pattern from the central stem. This minimalises the amount of space the tree occupies in the garden and also helps to increase yield. Land which has been left uncultivated for a period of time is said to be fallow. Leaving land fallow is a more common practice on farms than in small home gardens, but it still may be necessary to fallow a part of your garden particularly if there have been an infection of eelworm, clubroot or other serious pest or disease. Leaving the ground fallow should increase the fertility of the soil, as various minerals and organisms will have a chance to build up in the garden. This is an insecticide which is used on both fruit and vegetables. It is useful for a great many crops, and it is extremely effective against caterpillars, particularly those of the sawfly, aphids and raspberry beetle. The union of two cells of the opposite sex to produce a new organism. In the garden, fertilisation is always the result of pollination, when the pollen grains produced by the anthers, male part of the plant, unite with the female part of the plant. In most plants, either insects or the wind will transfer pollen and fertilisation will take place naturally. However, in some plants, the gardener may need to help with the process by transferring pollen artificially. This is important if you grow fruit trees, things such as melons and marrows. This can easily be done with a small art brush by dabbing the male and then in the female. Many of the seeds offered for sale are F hybrids. This means that they are the first generation of plants which result from crossing two varieties or two species. Such crosses are usually much stronger than the parents, producing larger plants or healthier crops. The F2, second generation, is much less vigorous, so F crosses have to be made each year, making such seeds expensive. Almost all plants in the fruit and vegetable garden produce flowers. In all cases, flowers are the organs for reproduction in these plants. Flowers can contain the reproductive parts of both sexes or of only one sex. The main parts of the flowers can be found. The brightly coloured petals help to attract pollinating insects to the plant so that the pollen can be taken from the male to the female part and fertilisation can take place. Petal, anther, filament, sepal, stem, stigma, style, ovary, receptacle. This is a method for hastening the growth of plants, usually by applying heat. Plants in the kitchen garden which are usually forced include rhubarb, chicory and sea kale. Rhubarb is forced to have it ready for cutting earlier than would be possible if it were left to grow at its own pace. Chicory and sea kale are forced to blanch the stems and make them more tender. Rhubarb is forced in the darkness of the greenhouse staging or in a cellar or shed. Chicory is usually forced in boxes or by covering the stalks with flower pots. This is a solution used as a disinfectant by gardeners. It is prepared by mixing formaldehyde with water to produce a 2% solution. The home grower can purchase a solution already prepared. Formalin is most useful for disinfecting soil in the greenhouse or garden frame, or for sterilising seed boxes, pots and tools. A very dilute solution can be used to treat seeds prior to sowing against certain seed-borne diseases. Treating celery seeds to prevent leaf spot is one example. A systemic insecticide. It is very effective against red spider mite and aphids. It is usually applied by watering a diluted solution into the soil, where it is absorbed by the roots and carried through the plant. This method means that it will kill the pest while leaving pollinating insects unharmed. Fruit and vegetables should not be harvested within a week of the last application of this. A garden frame is a structure used for growing plants under glass with some degree of protection from the weather. A standard frame has either wooden, metal or brick sides and is covered by a light, preferably of glass but sometimes plastic. Frames can be unheated, cold frames, or heated. A cold frame is used for hardening off seedlings, protecting tender crops and forcing out of season fruit and vegetables. A heated frame can be used as a miniature greenhouse, growing virtually any crop you can raise in a greenhouse within the limited height of the frame. Electric cables are generated, regarded as the most efficient heating method. In gardening, Friebel describes the condition of the soil. The soil is best for most gardening operations, being crumbly, neither too dry nor too moist, and very easy to work with.